For those of you who may be joining us just now, my name is Yvette McDonnell, and I'm an interfaith chaplain, spiritual companion, ritualist, curandera, root woman, sage, seer, wise woman, and in some places I need no name at all. Thank you all for having me back today. Before I begin to share, I must magnify today's music selection that is rooted in a tapestry of gospel music, ancestors, and centered on healing, hope, and light. I draw upon wisdom and teachings from all that surrounds me, including but not limited to what exists here in the material world and in the dream world, nature, music, poetry, movement, and the many faiths and ways of being in the world. The last time I was here with you all was back in, I think, January of 2023, and I shared a sermon about planting seeds and getting into good trouble. Well, today I want to share another inspirational, very personal story about Norma. Norma is a small olive-skinned woman with dark hair and sunglasses who planted grass and mothered me in ways which left many teachings that have impacted my life today. My story about Norma is not succinct. My story is and has been in the making for over 29 years, filled with feelings that live in my body, wonderment, nostalgia, regret, chuckles of laughter and joy. There are moments that feel so real, I can almost touch and smell and taste them. There are aspects of my story that are hard to articulate with words that resonate so deeply inside of me that they feel sacred. So, please bear with me as I meander along the grounds of memories that take twists and turns along the way and share as best as I can about my best friend's mother, Norma, a woman who is not my mother, but who mothered me nonetheless, and who has left me with some of the biggest life lessons and gifts I have only begun to uncover recently over the last 10 years or so. Whew, okay. Well, let me give you a little backstory about how I met Norma. It was in May or June back in 1995. I was only 19 years old when I was at the University of Connecticut finishing up my first year of undergrad. That year, I became friends with Alexa, a girl who lived down the hall in the same dorm as me. At first, Alexa and I, we, we did not like each other at all. But somewhere along the beginning of my first year at UConn, to the end of that year, our friendship began to bloom. We became inseparable. Alexa grew up and lived not too far away from the school. And over the course of the first year of our friendship, she had invited me over to her house several times to eat. And that is when I met Norma. So when Alexa introduced me to Norma, Norma took it upon herself to call me Trixie instead of Yvette, which at the time I found odd, but for some reason I didn't mind. As I said, Norma was a petite woman with olive skin and dark brown hair, and she had a unique energy that I had never encountered before. She even wore sunglasses indoors all the time, which added to her mysterious aura. So, when I would visit Alexa at her house, I often saw Norma walking around the grounds. This is what she called her property, the grounds. So, when she was walking about the grounds, most of the time she was barefoot. She usually had on some type of colorful mix match outfit, and her nails and toes were painted this pinkish color. And to accompany this pinkish nail polish, her hands and feet were the color of the earth, as she always seemed to be outside tending to it. Now, at the time, my 19-year-old self thought Norma to be peculiar, a little quirky, different. Not only did I see Norma as odd, her house matched her one of a kind personality. I had never seen a house like my friend Alexa's house before. Norma and Alexa's home was the type of home that we would see today on Instagram that boasted making your living space a magical playground. The house was airy and it sat on top of a hill, and it had this open, flowing floor plan. There were glass windows everywhere so the natural light could get in. There were plants, many books, stairways leading here and there. There were plates and dishes and furniture that didn't match, but strangely looked amazing together. And there was a porch that caught the day's sun for the best sunbathing one could ever wish for. There was art about, there was jazz music playing softly in the background, and I think NPR was also on. And in the evening, when the sun would go down, the house was dim, warm, very inviting, with twinkle lights everywhere. You know, like the white Christmas tree lights. It was magical. Even if I didn't know it at the time, my body knew it, and I carried this with me over the years. There was this wood stove downstairs that always had paper in it. And at the time, I was so perplexed and I could not understand why they would keep their trash in their wood stove. You know, I ate many, many meals with my friend Alexa and her mom, Norma. They introduced me to Middle Eastern cuisine. This was the first time I had hummus and olives, pita bread, and baba ganoush, if I'm saying that correctly, which were my all-time favorites. And if I remember correctly, on Sundays, Norma would make these pancakes. They were flat, tangy, and very, very good. They were nothing like any pancakes I had ever had before. She had made them from this mixture that she kept in the refrigerator. At the time, I didn't know, but now I know that that mixture in the refrigerator was a sourdough. And those flat, tangy pancakes were from the pour off of the sourdough. I only realized this during the pandemic when I too had a strange mixture of sourdough starter on my countertop, and I used the pour off to make sourdough pancakes one day. And it wasn't until my first bite back then during the pandemic that that tanginess of the flat pancakes transported me back to Norma's kitchen. One of my favorite appetizers and recipes that Norma made had no official name. At least I don't believe that it did. It was this block of cream cheese that was covered in toasted sesame seeds, and then it was drenched in soy sauce, and it was served with toasted pita bread. This recipe that has no name, this used to be my go-to for potluck dishes in my late 20s and early 30s, and it was always a hit. Over the course of years, Alexa became more like a sister to me than a friend. My mom even became friends with Norma. And every time my mom would come to visit me at UConn, Norma always had us over. And I remember one time we all went to go see Nancy Wilson and Harry Belafonte perform. I even went to Washington, D.C. and the Smithsonian with Alexa and Norma. And one of our favorite things to do together was to go shopping at the boutique, which was just another name for a thrift store. Norma, like my mom, had a gift for shopping at boutiques. Norma's eclectic clothing style and home decor was very much fashioned from her treasure finds from the various boutiques that she had acquainted over the years. You know, there were some other odd things Norma did that I had never seen anyone do, and I didn't understand them at the time. One thing I remember about Norma is that she loved herself a good buffet, yet I rarely saw her eat a ton of food at her house. I do remember, though, that she snacked a lot on nuts and seeds throughout the day. The other thing Norma did was she used to send my friend Alexa back to campus with which seemed like a ton of vitamins that she lovingly placed in these pill cases. And the most peculiar thing I saw Norma do was when I saw this woman outside. She was on her hands and her knees with her pink fingernail polish, transplanting grass. She was literally moving grass from one area of the grounds to another area that needed more grass. I didn't ask any questions. I just shrugged it off as, oh, yeah, of course, Norma is doing this. It's a very Norma thing to do. And I just went on about my day. Time passed, and I graduated with my undergrad and grad degree from UConn. Norma even came out to eat with my family after my graduation, and she gifted me an original Norma painting of her house that was on the hill that overlooked a nearby lake. It was lovingly addressed to Trixie and signed with her famous three hearts and her name, Norma. I stayed in contact with Norma over the years. Whew, this telling the story is harder than I thought. I was honored. I was honored when Norma accepted my invitation to my wedding with her iconic Norma look that included sunglasses, of course, and a sundress and this colorful red hat that I knew that she had picked up at some boutique. And on May 9th, 2010, on May 9th, 2010, on Mother's Day, Norma was taken to the hospital. And sometime between the night of May 9th to the early morning of May 10th, she went into a coma. And I remember it like it was yesterday, getting a call from my dear friend Alexa, telling me what had happened. And without hesitation, my husband and I packed up our 1-year-old and some things in a bag, and we headed to the hospital in Connecticut from Maine. And as Norma lay there in a coma, I had the privilege and honor to sit with her by myself just for a bit. And I held her hand and I sang a song to her and told her how much I loved her. And in those quiet moments, I regret not asking Norma more about her ways of how she showed up in the world. Norma passed away, surrounded by family and friends on May 10th, the day after Mother's Day. And although Norma is not here in the physical world anymore, she comes and visits with me numerous times in my dreams. Her spirit lives on, and I feel her presence a lot. And now, I have my own house with 3 acres of grounds to walk about. I now understand what I thought was Norma's quirky, odd, eccentric behavior was really Norma just not giving a damn. She was free. She was out there in the world living her life. I now have such a deep admiration and understanding of just a small piece of who Norma was in the world. Norma moves through me with a feeling and sense of intuitiveness. And I move with the rhythm of nature, filling my house with natural light and plants. And as spring and summer come and go, my hands too are the color of earth, just like Norma's, as I tend my own grounds and feed my family from my organic garden. My home is warm and welcoming with books and art and an eclectic style of mix matched furniture and dishes. And in every apartment I had ever lived in, including my current house that I have now, I always needed to have and currently have twinkle Christmas tree lights up. These lights offer a calming mood in the wee hours of the morning and night, just like Norma's house. Norma's home was the first place I had ever experienced that type of coziness in a home. I now understand why Norma put trash in her wood stove, as I too put trash, or I should say paper, in my wood stove to get it started. I now understand the importance that seeds and nuts play in our overall health and why snacking on a handful a day is beneficial. I too make sourdough pancakes when my daughter is requesting comfort snacks when she is studying. I too lovingly fill my daughter's pillbox with vitamins because now I understand. I continue to shop at boutiques as though I am on Fifth Avenue, collecting odds and ends that adorn my body as a sacred temple. A couple of summers ago, ah, a couple of summers ago, I did the most Norma thing ever. I transplanted grass. Yes, my husband and I transplanted grass from one area of our land to another. If that isn't the most Norma thing ever, then I don't know what is. And it was in that moment that I got it, that I understood why she transplanted grass and so much more that lives on inside of me today. Over the years, Norma modeled a way of life for me that was new and different. Norma was like a mother to me, and I don't think she intentionally set out to mother me and provide me with life lessons, but she did, just like she transplanted the grass from one part of the grounds to another, and that grass grew. Norma transplanted life lessons to me that grew over the years. And at the age of 49, I am proud that I too am quirky, odd, eccentric, and live in an eclectic style house and transplant grass like Norma. Whenever I see a rainbow or hear the Israel, I cannot pronounce his last name, version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I lovingly think of Norma and my heart is warmed. I invite you all to sing together, muted, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, as we remember mothers of all kinds today.